morning. It's Wake and Bake with Old School and Co. How's everybody doing today? I'm having a wonderful day. I hope you are too. I hope you're toking up and tuning in because it's going to be a great show today. I'm sitting here with my friend Lisa Rogers.
Hi.
A little,
yeah. 5'2", I'm little.
Yeah, she's just a little bit shorter than I am.
Well, when you're sitting down, it doesn't really matter so much.
I know when we can adjust the chairs.
This is true.
Okay, now you are a RN.
Yeah, I'm a registered nurse. I've been a nurse for 27 years. That makes me feel really old, and the gray hair shows it. But
I got the gray hair with me, I understand.
Well, you know, I could tell my kids when I first started having kids, I still had like my natural color, and then I started having children.
Well,
this is what happens.
Go.
So,
but Lisa, you're the one that whenever I go into the doctor or whenever I'm in the hospital or whatever, you're the one I see the most.
Right. You know, nurses have been voted the most trusted profession for the last 18 years straight. So people feel like they can trust nurses because we're the ones that they see when you go to the doctor's office, when you're in the hospital. I mean, we've all been there. We all know. Right. Doctor walks in the room, spends 5 minutes with you, he walks back out.
Yeah,
and then, and then we have to come in and explain what it was he just tried to tell you, but you didn't really get because either he talked too fast or it was all medical jargon and it didn't make any sense, right. And you know, or you just went over your head and you just didn't catch it.
Because a lot of times it does. You know, I go in there, you know, I'm in pain, I'm hurting or whatever, and
right.
It's a quick deal. You know, they
right.
do this and I'll do this for you. You know? That's why I do enjoy discussing with my nurse because we do know the nurses.
Yeah, and I, you know, like I said, I mean, I've been a nurse for 27 years. I've been working in home health now for 11, so I still currently work full time in home health, but then I'm working with, I'm doing the cannabis thing on the side, working with patients strictly in a cannabis sense.
Okay, and you did bring a lot of literature on cannabis with you today, didn't you?
I brought goodies. I brought
goodies. I love the fun stuff.
So I know. So as part of my regular job, because like I said, I work in home health full time, so I do educate all of my home health patients about medical cannabis, CBD, at every admission, almost every admission. I invariably will ask, have you thought about using CBD or have you thought about using medical cannabis for something? Because, I mean, every one of our patients could benefit from using medical cannabis in some way. You know, everybody has an issue.
That's our opinion. We always have to throw it. It's our opinion.
Right, it's our opinion, you know.
But we were discussing this earlier. CBD, in my opinion, it does help the THC absorb in your body.
Right.
People, I know CBD, but I do use CBD.
Oh, yeah. I use CBD every day.
Yeah.
I love CBD.
I do it
it's my friend.
with my THC, and it helps it absorb, and it helps with a lot of body maladies, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, and of course, as we get older, for various reasons, either because of previous injuries, arthritis, not because of lifestyle, that would never happen, but, you know. But because of just getting older, you know, most of us develop arthritis in some way, shape, form, or fashion. You know, previous injuries you had when you were younger that now start to give you pain issues as you get older, chronic conditions that we develop. And almost everybody can benefit from taking CBD. Oh,
you see, I'll bring up my neuropathy again. The reason I think I've got it is, you know, all those years I used to dig ditches. I really have dug ditches for a living.
Right.
Running that shovel, but you put that repetitive motion there on that same spot, you know. Yeah. You see your boots break down. They always break down in the same spot. Well, it's breaking your foot down. You just don't really know.
Right. Right. And well, and I mean, I'm having the same problem. You know, we were talking about a little while ago. I've known for years I'm developing arthritis in several joints, usually this elbow and this wrist and, you know, my knees especially. But I pounded concrete floors. I worked in hospitals for probably 15 years. And
that's so hard on you.
Yeah. And, you know, so you can imagine working 12-hour shifts, pounding those concrete floors, you know. So it takes a toll on your joints over time. And so now my right knee especially is starting to give me a lot of problems. And I do have arthritis in it. And it is trying to flare up. And, you know, so if it wasn't for, my opinion is, because I know how I was hurting before I started using CBD. Right. So now that I've been using CBD, I guess, for a couple of years at least. So if it wasn't for CBD every day, taking it internally as well as topicals, I don't think I could get out of bed in the morning.
That's one thing a lot of people don't realize is that you can take it internally. You know, they got gummies, they got flour, they got tinctures, and they've also got topicals.
Oh, yeah, I love topicals.
Topicals are great. You're not going to get the psychoactive effects with the topicals that you will get ingested.
Right. Yeah. And topicals are great introduction for patients.
They really are.
So like, for most of of course, I work predominantly with seniors. So the vast majority of my patients are over 65, 70 years old. So a lot of seniors are very curious because they hear a lot just on the news, and they see all the dispensaries, and of course before the dispensaries it was all the CBD shops on every corner. So they see all this stuff, they hear people talking about it. It's the hot word for the moment is CBD or whatever. And so they hear all these things about how it can help and what it can do and all those sorts of things. And so they're curious and they want to try something, but because of the stigma associated with THC, they're kind of leery. So I love topicals as far as that's a great introduction for older patients to help them see that it does help. They can get benefit from it. They can apply it directly where they need it. It's going to help them in that moment. And then as they use it and they're like, oh, wow, well, this really does help. And then they'll be like, well, maybe I could try this, or maybe I could try that. And then it kind of starts to ease them into, into doing the whole thing,
Cannabis is out of the closet because, I take a lot of pictures.
Right.
And sometimes
I didn't know you took a lot of pictures. I'd never noticed that on my Facebook feed.
But sometimes I'll take a picture and post it, and it'll be, Becky, you're at this,
Right.
And now it's out of the closet. People are saying, yes, I do use CBD. I do use cannabis.
Right.
I've used it for years.
Right.
And people don't realize that, 55 to 70, we are the driving demographics in this.
Oh, yeah. Seniors, and I told somebody that before, is seniors is the up and coming market share in the cannabis world. And so you're seeing this increasing push from the senior side because, everybody gets sick of taking pills. And especially the older you get, the more pills you've got a lot of times. Now, occasionally I'll have somebody, I love it when I go to see somebody who's like 90-something years old. And I'm like, okay, can I see your med list? And it's like, 3 meds. I'm like,
yeah, that's right.
How did that happen? How did you get away with this? And they're like, oh, I've never need to take a lot of medicine. But then I've had patients I've gone out to see, especially, I hate to say it, VA patients, that they'll give me their med list, which usually the VA will send us their medication list, and it'll be 2 or 3 pages long.
I know what you mean.
And most of it, now the VA, for which this is getting into minutia, but the VA, when they send us a med list, they put everything on there. So if you're a diabetic and they're sending you insulin syringes and strips and, whatever, all those things that aren't really a medication, all of that stuff is on the med list, so sometimes it makes it look longer than what it really is.
Yeah, that's the government. They got to cover everything.
Yeah, but still, at minimum, you're probably talking 10 to 15 individual medications for that one patient.
Well, see, that was me. We need to take a quick break because when we come back, we're going to talk about me getting off the drugs I got off of. Okay, this is Old School and Co. We're sitting here talking to Lisa Rogers and taking a quick break. Hokey toke up and tune in. Cool. Welcome back to Old School and Co. I'm sitting here talking to my friend Lisa Rogers.
Hi.
I hope you toked up and tuned in while we were gone. And now this is the part where I get to talk about I used to be one of the people, because before the break we were talking about the people on drugs.
Right.
I used to be on a large amount of drugs,
Mm-hmm.
and for 12 years I was on those drugs, and I got sick of being sick.
Right.
So 4 or 5 years ago, I got a large amount of cannabis, and I got off all those drugs.
Mm-hmm.
But the people that are on these drugs, that is your own private prison,
right?
Because you've got to go to a doctor, you've got to do these
Mm-hmm.
tests, you've got to go to the pharmacy.
Right.
It's such a hassle.
Oh yeah, it's a pain, and there's lots of issues we see in home health that. Mm-hmm. For anybody who's a nurse who's watching and you've ever thought about doing home health, I'm going to tell you right now, there's not a work-life balance. But because you have to be nurse as well as social worker most of the time. Right. So a lot of times we have to help patients that are having issues with getting their medication, mm-hmm. or just physically being able to get to the pharmacy. We may need to help them find a pharmacy that can deliver and those sorts of things. So there's lots of issues. And one of the things I think back on now is, of course, in the last few years, we've had the whole opioid epidemic.
Right. Oh yeah. Because I'm an opiate addict.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
10 milligram hydrocodones every day.
Right. And
prescribed, and I did a little more than that.
And it was crazy the stuff I was seeing in home health, because of course, we see people in their home.
Right.
So we're seeing them in their home setting, with whatever it is their day-to-day thing is that they've got going on. This is not a controlled environment. It's not like when you're in the hospital. Or
when you get up and you take a shower everything. And you go to the doctor.
Right, right, exactly. And so, I was seeing patients all the time that mm-hmm. were on multiple narcotics, taking huge amounts of opioids and stuff. And a lot of times, their pain still was not controlled because they'd been on it for so long and they were at such high doses. They maxed out on everything, and they were just miserable. And their quality of life was terrible.
That's the way I was. I was
all
just
the time.
Such a zombie.
Mm-hmm.
You hurt all the time. The first thing you do when you get up in the morning, you take that pain pill, right there, you wash it down with coffee or whatever. And that's 5, 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. And it's, I remember one guy in particular I had that he would tell me all the time, and to look at him, you wouldn't guess, and this is of course most chronic pain patients, you would not guess he hurt as badly as he did because he didn't show it. Mm-hmm. But and I would be like, well, have you thought about going to pain management or whatever? And he's like, I've been to pain management. They've done everything. They've done this. They've done that. He's like, I can't take anything else prescription wise. He's like, nothing works anymore. So he's like, I just deal with it. And he's like, I just,
and that's
and I would get frustrated.
Your quality of life so much.
Oh yeah, it degrades your quality of life, and I would get frustrated as a healthcare provider because especially as a nurse, I can't prescribe.
Right.
I can't do recommendations for people to get their card, and I can't prescribe any type of medication at all because I'm not a nurse practitioner. So it was frustrating for me to go in and see these people and then have nothing I could suggest to them to help them improve their quality of life outside of getting
you're
more
the
prescription
person seeing them the most. You're going in their home.
Right.
They sit there and they relate to you because it's not a 5-minute visit. If you go in your home, you're home health, you're probably there a while.
Yeah, we're usually there at least a half hour, and then we'd have, and some of my patients I would see either from a few months to sometimes years. We'd have these people in service for years.
Yeah, you're on a regular schedule. Mm-hmm. You go in and see them, and they talk to you while they're there.
Right.
Because again, our suffering silent. Mm-hmm. We've been held in our homes for so long.
Right.
And whenever you do see somebody, you talk to them because you want the interaction with another human being. Yeah.
Right. Well, we were talking about this a minute ago.
There we go.
I got to bring this up. Okay. So for anybody who doesn't know, this is the very first, this came out back in the fall, like in November was when it first was published. So it hasn't been out but just a few months. But this is the first actual nursing textbook that has been written for nurses. So it's called Cannabis, a Handbook for Nurses by Carrie S. Clark. I'm reading this upside down. It's a really, really good book, though. It's published by, I think their name online is something else, but if you do a search for Lippincott, Lippincott is a big medical textbook publisher. Yeah. So that's who publishes the majority of our nursing textbooks that we use in school. So they are actually the publisher for this book. Cool. So it's not going through like some wacky publishing house or whatever. So it is legitimately being published by a medical textbook publisher. And it's been very, very well researched. And the
that is fantastic.
References they have
actually doing research, and they've written a book for nurses. That is so cool.
I just want to give you guys an example. So like at the end of each chapter, so one of the things I like about this book is it covers everything from start to finish. So it looks at not only the history of cannabis, but it goes in depth into everything pretty much that you need to know. The endocannabinoid system, all the cannabinoids, dosing, the pharmacology of it, just all kinds of stuff.
I love it when you bring up the endocannabinoid system.
Oh, yeah. So, but at the end of each chapter, it has some questions that are similar to what you would see on the test that we have to take when we get our licensure.
Oh, really?
So when you graduate from nursing school, yes, you're a nurse, but you still have to get licensed by your state.
Right.
So you have to take your state boards. So these are questions that are similar to what you would see on the state board.
Cool.
And the reason they did that is the American Nurses Association and the, see if I can get it right, National Council for State Boards of Nursing, both a few years ago put out statements supporting nurses and being educated in cannabis so that we can work with our patients and educate our patients.
That is fantastic.
I know, right?
That. Yeah.
Is that not like fantastic? So what they did was they wrote this book based on the 6 pillars that the National Council put in their statement. So with the intention of hopefully, maybe in a few years, we'll start to see questions about medical cannabis start to pop up on the state boards.
Cool.
And if and when that starts to happen, the nursing programs are going to have no choice but to have to start to include this in their curriculum.
That is great. Because I want education included into our nursing and doctor's program.
But I mean, look, just at the end of this chapter, this is all just the references for this one chapter.
Really? That is so cool.
So, I mean, look at all that's just like
it is well researched.
Yeah, it's very well researched. So anybody who just likes to have the information, you can order this on Amazon, and you can order it directly from the publisher.
Okay, now one thing I did like about it, your little page markers here.
I know.
We were talking about that. I don't know whether you can see this on camera or not, but these little page markers
are they like the cutest
have
things?
A little canvas leaf on them. Yeah. Now, good
yeah, I got those from, there's a girl, Etsy is an evil place. I'm just going to tell you right now. You find all kinds of stuff on there. But there's a girl that I found, because I like to use planners, and I like to decorate my planners. It's weird, I know, I'm an adult, but I like stickers. So anyway, the name of her shop is the Canna Planning Sticker Shop, and if you put that in, that's actually her web address.
Okay.
But she makes all kinds of like cannabis themed stickers and resin products.
Can
and all
custom
kinds of
order?
Stuff. Yeah, I think she can do custom orders,
cool.
And she actually had this washi tape made, so that's for those crafty people.
Yeah, I love those
washi tape. So it comes off in little strips, and you can use it to mark pages and stuff.
Right. So right on.
I made it easier so I could find the chapters.
Okay, we're going to sit here and we're going to take a short break. This is Old School and Co. I'm sitting here trying to find my friend, the RN Lisa Rogers. I hope you toke up and tune in while we're gone. Welcome back to Old School and Co. I'm sitting here talking to my friend Lisa Rogers, and I hope you toked up and you're tuning back in.
Yep. Okay. So we're going to jump into this real
She's
fast.
going to jump right into this list.
This was something else I wanted to bring up. Okay. So I printed this off for anybody who wants to find this. You can find it on drugs.com.
Right.
Is the website. I used to love that website. I use it all the time at work. But basically what the website is for is you can look up any medication to see, like, what are the side effects, what are the indications, what's the dosing.
Now, this is kind of like the old PDR, right?
Right. It's just now it's all gone electronic.
I love electronics.
Thank God for the
PDRs
internet.
Were a hassle. You
Oh, my God. And the PDRs to me are confusing. So one thing I like about like drugs.com and other websites is they'll have information on there so it's accessible to the public. It's in a format that's people can understand who don't have a medical background.
Right.
And then you can still find like where you want to go in depth on like the medical side of like the pharmacokinetics and how this stuff works.
Because so much stuff interacts with each other.
Oh, yeah.
I used to go to 3 different doctors, you know, and I got a lot, you know, one prescription here, one prescription here,
right.
you know,
Yeah. And well, and that's one of the things we have to do. Like when I go out to see a patient and I get them admitted for home health, we have to put in there all our medications, and then we have to run a what's called a medication reconciliation. So that checks, the computer looks to see of all the medications that they're on, what's the potential for interaction between any of those medications.
kind of like this list
Right.
here.
So like this list. Yes, exactly. Just like this list.
I catch on pretty quick.
So any medication can potentially have an interaction with something else. And it can range anywhere from very minor to a potentially severe interaction.
You know, that's one thing I noticed when I got off all the opiates and everything is I had a, you know, ache somewhere in my body.
Right.
And I took aspirin or whatever.
Right.
I was really impressed with how strong that stuff was. Wow.
Oh, yeah. And well, and of course, a lot of times people are given prescription meds, and then you start having a problem, and then you have to take something else because of the side effect from that first med, and then that leads to something else. The next thing you know, you're on like 10 different pills. So it's just, it's ridiculous. But but you can check online for drug interactions. So on drugs.com, they have a spot where you can go on there, you can put in 2 different names, like whatever medications you're wanting to check, and then it'll tell you if there's an interaction. Or what I did for this was I just put in cannabis, and then I was able to get an entire list of every medication that we know of that can potentially interact with it.
Now, what if, okay, I got a short question here. What if I go over to an elderly person's house and it's not in a labeled bottle?
Right.
I find a pill. Can I go on there and look at this pill, like scan the pill or something like that, and find out what they're taking?
Oh, yeah, I do it all the time.
I love that. Yeah, because we do, yeah.
Well, and because and this is probably something a lot of people don't realize, is every prescription medicine is going to have a unique identifier on it. So it's either going to be a number or letter or combination thereof. It's going to be unique to that pill most of the time. So when you put it into the pill identifier, it will pop up an image, provided there's one available. So that way you can look and see, because they may still have the same numbers and letters on it, but it'll look different.
Right.
So then you can look and see, oh, okay, this picture matches this med, and that's the right letters, and so now I know.
So I used to be able to look at hydrocodone and go, okay, 5 milligrams, 7.5, 10, you know.
Right.
It's not that hard.
Well, and you know, sometimes you go to the pharmacy and you get your stuff, and it's, you know, pink instead of white this time, or it's a different size or shape or whatever, and it's just from a different supplier, it's from a different manufacturer. And that throws people off, especially when they're used to seeing every week or every month when they go get their blood pressure medicine, it's always this little white pill. And this time it's a little yellow pill.
I need to go get my blood pressure medicine.
Right. So, but with cannabis, there's actually 380 different prescription medications that you could potentially have an interaction with.
Really?
So it doesn't mean that you're going to have an interaction. Because here's the thing to remember about with interactions is, especially for people who are on a lot of meds, there's always going to be potential interactions. Right. It's a potential. Doesn't mean it's going to. Because we all take a lot of stuff that works fine together and you never have an issue.
That's what I'm going to bring. So some reactions are going to be negative. Some reactions could be positive. Because when I was taking my hydrocodone, sometimes I could do cannabis. Right. And the cannabis, in my opinion, helped amplify the effects of hydrocodone, and I didn't have to take it.
And there's some medications that cannabis will increase the effects of. There's some medications it will decrease the effects of, and then there's some medications that could interfere with the effectiveness of the cannabis. So it just depends on how it interacts with the body. Yeah. So, but those are all things, which is one reason I started doing the whole cannabis nurse thing. Is what I'm trying.
Cannabis nurse thing at
Canucopia.
Oh, there we go.
Yes, it's on my jacket. Look.
Not off.
So what I'm trying to do is work with patients to fill that gap, because as much as we love our dispensaries, unfortunately, a lot of doctors are either not on board or have limited knowledge and understanding of how cannabis works.
Right.
So, and some of them don't want to know, and some of them don't have time to know.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So it's, in my mind, that's really where nurses are going to help to fit in, is to help fill that void and fill that gap for people.
Right.
Because right now there's a big gap between when somebody gets their card and when they go to the dispensary. Because a lot of times there's little to no communication with their doctor, as whether from the patient or anybody else, as to what they're taking and what they're using.
Well, now you know my deal about I want you to be able to get your card on your lunch hour.
Right.
I want you to be able to call your doctor at noon, whatever call in. They'll do the call in. You hit any tag agency in Oklahoma, in my opinion. You give them that recommendation. They know how to take your picture. They know how to print it out.
Right.
Boom, they print it out. Okay, that's 12:15, 12:25 or so.
You're done.
I'm in a dispensary by 12:30, 12:35. That's how I want it.
I mean, that would be nice. Unfortunately,
nice.
we're not we're not there yet. But what I'm trying to do is help patients to, especially new patients, of course, to understand like how much to take, what product is available to them, methods of consumption, what may work best for them. Because unfortunately, when they go into a dispensary and the way the law is written, a doctor can do the recommendation, but they really, that's like their limit. They really can't do anything else.
Can't tell you how much or how little.
Right. So that's dependent on the dispensary. So, and unfortunately, all dispensaries are not created the same.
Right.
And the education in all the dispensaries is not the same. So when you go into a dispensary, it's hit or miss as to whether or not you get a knowledgeable bud tender and how much they know and understand about, the endocannabinoid system.
That's what we
and
much less to educate
this
the entire industry is, we're not here just to bong out and I am a medical patient. I've got tons of maladies that I use it for.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to do, is bridge that gap for people, and I like to call it cannabis case management.
But you're at Canation Consulting?
Cannacopia Consulting.
Cannacopia Consulting.
I know, I keep looking at my jacket. So, but I like to call it cannabis case management, because what I can do as a nurse is not only work with the patient to help them understand not only how cannabis can work for them, but I can sit down and review their medication list with them and see if there's any potential interaction, and and advise them how to avoid those interactions. Cool. And then if they want me to, because I'm a nurse, I can interact with their doctor's office. So if they don't want to have to be the one to call their doctor and say, hey, by the way, I started using this and I want to come off this anxiety medicine.
It's really hard to call some doctors and say, I want to stop this medication. They go, no, you don't.
Right. And I think you get a little different response if it's the patient calling versus another healthcare professional calling.
Right.
The patient's going to get a different response sometimes from the office than what we do. So if I call them and say, hey, this is Lisa with Cannacopia Consulting and I'm working with your patient. And by the way, just so you know, they started using this and now they're having less problems with their anxiety. They've already started tapering off of their anxiety and depression medicine. How do you want to do this? Because they're going to come off of it whether you like it or not. It's like,
because I've got friends that the VA gives them these pills. They go home, throw them right in the toilet, and flush them right away.
Yeah, and when you're on psychotropics like that, you don't want to just stop cold turkey.
Yes,
anything
you don't
that you're
want to
taking
stop
that's
just
for
cold
depression.
turkey.
Yeah, because I've never had anybody have like a really negative reaction, but the potential is there.
Really there,
you don't want to like throw your body into shock.
No,
that would be bad. We don't want to do that. So that's basically what I'm doing, is working with patients to help them understand this. I want to be that bridge between the doctor's office, the patient, and the dispensary, and help the dispensaries to, because just from my own interactions with dispensaries, some dispensaries you go in, you have more time to talk to somebody, but a lot of times it's you get your product to get out.
Right.
They don't have time to sit down and really provide patient education. And they definitely don't have the time or expertise to do this part, to go over their med list.
Because there's so much stuff to educate about. Like at Simple Cure, they've got a CBD product. They call it Bella's Blend, and it doesn't have any taste to it because they're giving it to an autistic child taste it. And they didn't, they didn't like the taste effect of
Right.
it, so they made it neutral. I
Right.
love kind of stuff like that. Where
Oh,
you
I
can
do too.
tailor stuff just to an individual
Yeah.
patient. Stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So that's,
That's wrapping it up for us.
I know he's giving you hand signals over there.
No.
So yeah.
Okay.
So
cool. We can find you at.
You can find me at, and I'll be brave and I'll give you my cell number. So my
Whoa.
work, I know, right? So my work number is 405-432-2767. That's my business number.
Right.
So you can reach me on that number. You can text message me, whatever. You can find me at canyucopia.com is my website. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. You can find me in all those places. I'm happy to talk with somebody if they just need some general information, like they're not sure if this is what they want to do, or they're just kind of needing some, like, how does this work for me sort of thing. But if they actually need somebody to sit down and go over their med list and stuff with them and really give them some ongoing guidance, then, I can do a paid consultation.
Well, I tell you what, Lisa, this was a great show. I'm definitely going to have you on again because we've got so much information we need to cover. I love this book. We're going to check this out.
Yep.
All right, we're out of here. This is Old School and Co. I hope you're toking up and tuning in because I'm sure going to.
Set me scientific, bond designer, water farm, orange shepherds. Too much slime in it, set me scientific, bond designer, water farm, orange shepherds. Water whipping, water dripping, broke the pack, mixed it with the measures.